Hi, I'm Doc Jenni. Join us in the Green Hornet as we travel the back roads of beautiful North Idaho. Every day is different, challenging, and never boring as we see all the farm animals, big and small. Hey ducks, so here's another piece of your groundwork that you can work on. It's very important for the partnership on the ground tests. For some of you, when we teach this exercise, it can be something that you struggle with a little bit, so we're hopefully going to try and simplify it and make it a little bit easier for you. I'll try and break it down into pieces. We'll at least show you the pieces and where you need to stand and try and go through some troubleshooting a little bit as well. So in partnership on the ground, test number 1, you will be coming down and you're going to be stopping at H and M, I believe, to do your turn on the haunches, or maybe it's R and S. Can't remember, it's been a while. So this is going to be a turn on the haunches where you're going to switch sides. So I'm going to go over to the side next to the rail, and I'm going to ask the horse to move just the hind quarter, or just the forequarters around the hind quarters. So I'm going to go over here onto the rail. I don't want him to move until I get ready to ask this question. And then I am going to put virtual pressure on his face so that he bends away from me this direction. And then onto the junction of the shoulder and the neck right here, because that's the body part that I would like to drive away. The importance of connecting to this part of the horse's body, it transfers into the saddle, because once the horse is in the saddle, your rein is going to be the primary connection to the horse for this maneuver. So I also want virtual pressure there. With Ernie, I don't have to apply actual pressure, because if I do, it'll be too much for him. For the horses that don't understand that virtual pressure, you'll want to put your whip here to drive that shoulder away. I can't even put it over there or Ernie's going to move. So I'm going to ask Ernie to step away from me. I have this hand ready to block him if he wants to go forward. And I'm going to try and keep my energy walking around in a circle around him. Ooh. Until he's back even with the rail. He did take one step with that inside hind. What I would like him to do is to leave that inside hind completely placed so that it stays in place. One of the things that'll help you is if your horse will be square to start this maneuver. So the way Ernie was standing with that right front leg forward, if he had gone to take a step, he probably would have stepped with his left front leg under that right front leg. And what I would like him to do is to step with that right front leg first. So having him be evenly squared up definitely sets you up for success. Now I'm going to step onto this side. I'm going to ask him to stay here and stay nice and calm. So make sure your horse will stay here, that they're not anticipating that maneuver. In the partnership on the ground test 1, this is really important because in those tests, we're not doing a draw turn on the haunches. This is a push turn on the haunches. So we're going to ask for it again. I'm going to create virtual pressure here and here, and hopefully ask for that leg to go around first. Good. Ooh, that was a good one. So he kept that foot planted. He actually kept both of his hindquarters planted that time because it was just a half turn. So he was able to make that turn. He did step under with his outside front leg. So if your horse is doing that, then you need a little bit more forward through your turn. So if you have a horse that is stepping through this turn, we'll just turn Ernie around. And he's got one direction. This must be the direction that he does it on. So if you go to create that turn and your horse steps under with that outside, this leg here, because it's on the outside of the turn, if they step under there, then you need a little bit more forward drive. So in order to correct that, you almost need to catch it before it happens. You're in charge of those feet. When your horse goes to make those turns, that is all up to you where he places those. So if your horse is not placing those feet correctly, then it's your job to catch him before he has placed a foot so that you can either take that foot forward or backwards. So again, like we were talking about with some of the other exercises, that takes a little bit of feel and some experimentation until you can get to the point where you can direct your virtual energy right at a foot and either move it forward or backwards. And that sounds like hocus pocus and magic, but trust me on this, that it's not. When you and the horse are on the same page and are building a partnership where the two of you can communicate through your body language and through your energy, as long as you are consistent, you can actually look at a foot and you can move just that foot. That's the kind of feel that we're working towards with these horses. That was one of the troubleshootings. So if your horse is stepping under, or if they're turning on the wrong hind leg, let's see if I can even create that. Usually if they're turning on the wrong, so they should do the turn on the haunches on their inside hind leg. So their body is gonna walk around, oh Ernie, that inside hind leg so it stays right there. If they are instead rocking onto their outside hind leg, this inside hind leg is gonna step backwards. Does that make sense? So instead of turning around this leg, his right hind, he's gonna turn around his left hind. That usually is because the horse is backwards too far. So if you're having difficulties and your horse is rocked back and turning on the wrong hind leg, then you need to increase your forward energy and take the horse forward a little bit more. For some of the cow horses or that have been trained through some of the natural horsemanship stuff, especially if it's more directed towards cows, your horse may do that, where they do the turn on the haunches on the incorrect leg, which is the outside hind leg. If your horse is doing that, then what I recommend is that you only do a quarter of a turn. So I'm gonna ask Ernie to just do a quarter of a turn. First of all, I need to, okay, so here if I had stepped him forward through that turn, he would have stepped backwards because his right fore was forward. So I'm going to ask him to step around, and then I'm gonna take him forward. You can see when he does that, he pushes off with that inside hind leg and puts his weight on that inside hind leg. So that's one of the ways that you can fix that. So we'll ask for that one more time. Get him set up for it. I'll move on to this side. We're gonna ask for a quarter turn and then ask him to come forward. So if you're having trouble with your horse turning onto the wrong leg, that's one of the ways that you can fix it. What if you're having trouble through your turn on the haunches and your horse is walking forward, which we see a lot of? So when you try and push the horse, instead of them turning around on the circle, you may push them and then they take off that direction. And so I think it might have been Cindy Brannon that was having some trouble with that at one of our clinics. She was really having a hard time getting her horse to step around, if I remember right. Maybe it wasn't you, Cindy, but I was thinking it was. So if that's the case, we're gonna ask the horse just to take one step at a time. Oh, Ernie. So again, make sure your horse is set up to do this maneuver properly. So I want him either square or with that right front leg back just a little bit. Now, if you have a horse that's gonna take off that direction, I'm gonna shorten my contact on the lead rope a little bit. This is gonna bother Ernie because he's so sensitive. I'm gonna ask him to take just one step, oh, and then I'm gonna stop it. I don't want him to go backwards. I don't want him to go forward. I just want him to realize that we're just staying here and that that's all that he needs to do. So I'm just gonna do light pressure to stop the forward movement. Don't wanna push him backwards, and we're gonna ask for one more. Oh. I'm gonna step him over again. Oh. And then I'm just gonna ask for him to stop. So I think we've touched on most of the trouble spots that we're used to seeing. So if your horse is stepping under with the front feet instead of stepping over, you need more forward in that energy. So remember your your inside leg on the turn needs to step out and back so that this leg can step over. So if you're having trouble with that, you can either ask the horse to step forward through the turn so you increase your forward motion, or just take the energy in that outside front foot and push it forward so you're not driving the horse backwards. If your horse is turning over the incorrect hind leg, then you want to make sure you're not pushing them back through the turn. That will oftentimes push them onto the outside hind leg through the turn. So you can ask them to step forward through the turn to maintain that forward energy. I know one other trouble spot. So what happens with some people in trying to control the forequarters is that they get too tight of a hold here and they create counterbend, trying to hold on to the forequarters and then push the shoulder away. Remember, for this exercise to be executed correctly, the horse needs to be in bend, the direction of the turn. So you've got to push the head away from you as you're pushing the shoulders away so that the horse does this maneuver in bend, because that's the way that we're going to want to create that within the saddle. So if you do it in counter bend, I'll see if I can even do this with Ernie. If you have too much pressure here because you're trying to control the forequarters, but you push this away, there you go. You're going to do it in counter bend, and that is incorrect, even though Ernie did it correctly. Nice work, Ernie. What'll happen a lot of times if you do it in counter bend is that you are going to create backwards motion and they're going to step under or hit themselves. But that is an incorrectly balanced maneuver. So you want to make sure you're doing it in bend. So the head and neck, everything's got to be pushed away from you on the ground so that the horse is in proper bend in order to do that. All right. So I think we're going to stop there with a turn on the haunches, and hopefully you guys can play with that maneuver and get that working for you. Hey everybody. Thanks for riding with us in the Green Hornet today. This is Doc Jenni signing out. If you like what you saw, be sure and follow us in the Green Hornet with Tormund, out on the road with Doc Jenni. Just click the link below and follow us along on our journeys. See you later.